My boyfriend proposed to me with a fake ring, but my response taught him a lesson he'll never forget. I knew something was wrong the moment I felt the weight of the ring between my fingers. We were standing on the balcony of our apartment, the one we'd scraped together every penny to afford, the one that overlooked the city skyline we'd fallen in love with 3 years ago, and Marcus was on one knee, his face illuminated by the string lights I'd hung myself last summer. The air smelled of jasmine from the potted plants I'd nursed back to life, and somewhere in the distance, a street musician was playing a violin, the notes drifting up like they'd been orchestrated just for this moment. It should have been perfect. It looked perfect, but the ring in my hand, this delicate circle of metal that was supposed to represent forever, felt hollow. Too light. Wrong in a way I couldn't immediately name, but could feel in my bones, the same way you know when someone's lying to you, even before you've caught them in the lie. "Maya," Marcus whispered, and his voice cracked with emotion that seemed so genuine, so devastatingly real, that for a split second, I wondered if I was imagining things. "Will you marry me?" His eyes were wet, actual tears gathering in the corners, catching the amber glow of the city lights. His hand trembled as he held the box. A velvet box that looked legitimate enough, that looked like it had come from a real jewelry store, not some discount bin at a mall kiosk. And me? I stood there frozen, feeling the weight of this moment pressing down on my chest like a physical thing, making it hard to breathe. Because I'd been waiting for this. God, I'd been waiting for this for so long. 2 years of hints dropped like breadcrumbs. 2 years of scrolling through engagement ring Pinterest boards when he wasn't looking. 2 years of watching our friends get engaged one by one. Of sitting through bridal showers and bachelorette parties. Of smiling and congratulating them while something inside me quietly wondered, when will it be my turn? And now it was. Now it was my turn. Except for that wait. I'm not proud of what I did next. I'm not proud that instead of immediately saying yes, instead of throwing my arms around the man I loved and kissing him until we both forgot our own names, I held the ring up to the light. Just for a second. Just long enough to see the way the stone caught the glow. Or rather, didn't catch it. The way it sat there dull and lifeless. Reflecting light in flat, cheap angles instead of refracting it into brilliant fire, the way a diamond should. The way the diamond he'd shown me in photos 2 months ago would have. "Marcus," I said slowly, and I watched his expression shift from hopeful to confused, to something that looked almost like fear. Is this the ring?" "What do you mean?" He was still on one knee, still holding the box, but his hand had stopped trembling. Now it was just still. Unnaturally still. "Of course it's the ring. It's your ring. I had it custom made, just like we talked about." We hadn't talked about custom made. We'd talked about a specific ring from a specific jeweler. A small, family-owned shop downtown where his mother had gotten her own engagement ring 40 years ago. I'd fallen in love with a vintage-inspired setting, with a round, brilliant diamond, simple but elegant, timeless in a way that felt like us. He'd shown me pictures of it, had pulled up the jeweler's website on his phone while we were having breakfast one Sunday morning, had pointed to it and said, "That's the one. That's the ring I'm going to give you." I'd taken a screenshot. I still had it saved on my phone, had looked at it so many times the image was probably burned into my retina by now. This wasn't it. This wasn't even close. "Stand up," I said quietly. "Maya, please, stand up." He did, slowly, confusion giving way to something that looked like defensiveness. He snapped the ring box shut and held it against his chest like he was protecting it. or protecting himself. What's going on? You're acting like... Is this a real diamond? I asked, and my voice came out steadier than I felt. Inside, my heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat, behind my eyes, in my fingertips. Marcus, look at me and tell me the truth. Is this a real diamond? The silence that followed was so thick I could taste it. It tasted like copper, like blood, like the moment before everything falls apart and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Does it matter? He finally said, and those 3 words hit me like a slap. Does it matter? I repeated, and I heard my voice rise, heard it crack around the edges. You're seriously asking me if it matters? It's about the symbol, Maya. It's about the commitment. It's not about how much I spent or whether it's... You told me you were saving for it. The words came out in a rush now, tumbling over each other, 3 years of trust suddenly unraveling like a sweater with a pulled thread. You told me you were putting aside money every month. You told me we needed to wait because you wanted to do it right, because you wanted to get the perfect ring. I waited, Marcus. I waited while everyone around us got engaged, while my mother kept asking me when you were going to propose, while my friends started making jokes about us being the eternal boyfriend and girlfriend. I defended you. I told them you were worth waiting for. And I am. He reached for me, but I stepped back, and I saw the hurt flash across his face. Maya, I am worth waiting for. This doesn't change anything. It's still me. We're still us. But it's not real. It's real enough. Real enough? I laughed, and it came out bitter and sharp. Nothing like the joyful laugh he usually pulled from me, the one that made his whole face light up. What does that even mean? Either something is real or it's not. There's no enough about it. He ran his hand through his hair, that familiar gesture he made when he was frustrated or stressed or trying to figure out how to get out of trouble. I'd always found it endearing before. Right now, it made me want to scream. You want to know the truth? He said, and there was an edge to his voice now, a hardness I'd rarely heard from him. Fine, I'll tell you the truth. The truth is that ring you wanted, the one from the vintage shop, it was $8,000. $8,000, Maya. That's more than we have in savings. That's more than I make in 2 months. And yeah, I could have saved for another year, maybe 2. But then we'd be 30 before we got married, and you're already anxious about the timeline. So, you lied to me instead? I didn't lie. I got you a ring, a beautiful ring that looks almost exactly like the one you wanted. Almost? I stepped closer to him, close enough to see the guilt swimming in his eyes beneath the defensiveness. Marcus, almost doesn't count when it comes to this, when it comes to us. This ring is supposed to last forever. It's supposed to be the one thing, the one symbol of this promise we're making to each other. And you got me a fake? What does that say about the promise? What does that say about our entire relationship? It says, I love you enough to make this happen now instead of making you wait years until I could afford the exact ring you wanted. His voice rose to match mine. And suddenly, we weren't having a proposal anymore. We were having a fight. The worst fight we'd ever had. Right here on the balcony where we'd shared 1,000 quiet evenings. Where we'd watched sunsets and made plans and whispered dreams to each other under the stars. You're making this about money when it's not about money, I shot back. It's about honesty. It's about you deciding without talking to me that it was okay to present me with something fake and hope I wouldn't notice. I was going to tell you. When? When, Marcus? After I'd already said yes? After I'd already shown it off to my family and friends? After I'd posted pictures of it online and everyone had congratulated us? I shook my head, feeling tears burning behind my eyes, refusing to let them fall. Or were you just hoping I'd never figure it out? That I'd be so happy to finally be engaged that I wouldn't look too closely? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I don't know, he finally admitted, and at least that was honest. At least that was real. I didn't think that far ahead. I wanted to give you this moment. I wanted to see the look on your face when I got down on one knee. I wanted to finally be able to call you my fiancé. With a fake ring? With a ring. He threw his hands up, the velvet box still clutched in his right hand. God, Maya, I'm sorry it's not perfect. I'm sorry I'm not a millionaire who can drop 10 grand on a piece of jewelry without blinking. I'm sorry I'm just a regular guy with a regular job trying to build a life with you the best way I know how. And there it was, the real issue. The thing lurking beneath all of this like a shark circling in dark water. Money, class, the invisible pressure that had been building between us for months, maybe years, neither of us wanting to name it because naming it would make it real. I came from money, not extravagant wealth, but comfort, security, a childhood where I never worried about whether we could afford things, where college was a given, not a dream, where my parents had helped with the down payment on this apartment as a graduation gift. Marcus came from struggle, from a single mother who'd worked 3 jobs to keep the lights on, from scholarships and student loans, and the kind of pride that came from having pulled yourself up by your bootstraps when no one gave you a hand. It was one of the things I loved about him. His work ethic, his determination, the way he'd built himself into someone successful and stable through sheer force of will. But it also meant we saw money differently, spent it differently, valued it differently. This isn't about what you can afford, I said, softer now, trying to pull us back from the edge of something we might not be able to come back from. This is about you not trusting me enough to have a conversation about it. If you'd told me the ring was too expensive, if you'd said you wanted to find an alternative, we could have figured it out together. We could have looked at other options, or talked about a longer timeline, or you would have been disappointed. Maybe, I admitted. But at least I would have known the truth. At least you would have given me the chance to be a part of this decision instead of making it for me. He was quiet for a long moment, staring down at the box in his hand. The string lights cast shadows across his face, making him look older, wearier. I thought I was doing the right thing, he finally said. I thought I was giving you what you wanted. What I wanted was you to be honest with me. What I wanted was a partner who trusted me enough to be real, even when real is hard or complicated or not as pretty as we hoped. I watched him process this, watched the defensiveness slowly drain from his shoulders, replaced by something that looked like understanding. Or maybe just exhaustion. It was hard to tell. So what now? He asked. Do I take it back? Do I return this and start saving for the real thing? Do we just pretend this didn't happen? I looked at the ring box, then at him, then out at the city skyline we'd fallen in love with. The view that had made us choose this apartment despite the slightly too high rent, despite the fact that it needed updating, despite everything. Because sometimes you know when something is right, even when it's not perfect, even when it's hard. No, I said slowly. We don't pretend it didn't happen. Then what do we do? I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what I was about to say, knowing it would change everything, knowing it had to. We start over, I said, but we do it right this time. With honesty, with real conversations about money and expectations and all the things we've been avoiding because they're uncomfortable. Because, Marcus, if we can't figure out how to be honest with each other about a ring, how are we supposed to figure out the really hard stuff? The kids' conversation? The housing conversation? The career sacrifice conversation? All the things that are going to come up over the next 50 years? He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the moment it clicked. The moment he understood that this wasn't just about a ring. This was about the foundation we were building, about whether that foundation was solid enough to hold the weight of a lifetime. "I'm sorry," he said, and this time it sounded different, not defensive, not making excuses, just genuinely, truly sorry. "You're right. I should have talked to you. I should have trusted you with the truth instead of trying to manage your expectations." "Yeah," I said. "You should have. Can I—" He hesitated. "Can I ask you something? If I had been honest from the beginning, if I'd told you I couldn't afford that exact ring, what would you have said?" I didn't answer right away. I wanted to make sure I gave him the truth, not just what would smooth things over, because that's what this moment required. Complete honesty, even when it was uncomfortable. "I would have been disappointed," I said finally. "I'm not going to lie about that. I'd been dreaming about that specific ring. But I also would have understood. And we could have figured out something that worked for both of us. Maybe a smaller stone, maybe a different setting, maybe a longer engagement while you saved. The point is, we would have figured it out together." He nodded slowly, and I could see him turning this over in his mind. "I think I was afraid," he admitted quietly. "Afraid that if I told you I couldn't afford it, you'd see me differently, like I wasn't enough." And there it was, the real wound beneath all of this, the insecurity that had been driving his choices, the fear that had made him reach for a fake ring instead of having a real conversation. "Marcus." I stepped closer to him, close enough to touch, though I didn't yet. "I've never needed you to be rich. I've never needed you to buy me expensive things. What I need is to know that when things get hard, when life gets complicated, you're not going to handle it alone. You're going to turn to me and say, 'This is hard. Let's figure it out together.'" "I'm not used to that," he said, and his voice was rough with emotion. "I'm used to solving my own problems, to not asking for help." "I know. But that's what a partnership is. That's what marriage is supposed to be. Two people facing life together, not two people trying to protect each other from reality." He was quiet for a moment, then he looked down at the ring box. "This is a mess," he said with a rueful laugh. "This was supposed to be the best night of our lives, and instead, we're standing here having the hardest conversation we've ever had." "Maybe that's not a bad thing," I said. "Maybe this is exactly the conversation we needed to have before we got engaged. Because if we can get through this, if we can figure out how to be honest with each other, even when it's scary, then maybe we really are ready for marriage." "So where does that leave us?" he asked. "Are we engaged? Are we not engaged? Are we in some kind of relationship limbo?" I smiled despite everything. "I think we're in the hard middle part, the part where we have to figure out what we really want this to look like." "And what do you want it to look like?" I thought about that, really thought about it, about what this moment had revealed, about what I'd learned about us in the last 20 minutes, about what actually mattered when you stripped away all the Pinterest boards and Instagram expectations and societal pressure. "I want a partner who trusts me with the truth," I said. "Even when the truth is, I can't afford that, or I'm scared, or I don't know what to do. I want someone who sees me as an equal, not someone who needs to be protected or managed. I want us to build something real, Marcus, not something that just looks good from the outside. I want that too, he said. I do. I have to learn how. I have to unlearn all these patterns I've built up over the years, all these ways I've taught myself to be self-sufficient and not need anyone. Then let's learn together, I said. Let's take this mess of a proposal and turn it into something better, something more us. He looked at me with something like wonder, like he couldn't quite believe I wasn't walking away. You're really not going to leave? Did you think I would? Maybe. Yeah. He ran his hand through his hair again. I kind of thought this might be the thing that made you realize you could do better. My heart cracked a little at that, at the vulnerability in his voice, at the real fear underneath his bravado. Marcus, I don't want to do better. I want to do real. And real means working through shit like this. It means having hard conversations and making mistakes and learning from them. So, what do we do about this? He held up the ring box. I reached out and took it from him, opened it, looked at the ring inside. It was pretty, actually. Not what I'd wanted, but objectively pretty. The band was delicate. The stone caught what light it could. Someone had put effort into making it look like a real engagement ring. Just not enough effort to make it actually be one. We return it, I said. And then we start over. But this time, we do it together. We set a budget that works for both of us. We look at rings together. We have honest conversations about what we can actually afford and what matters most to us. And maybe, I looked up at him. Maybe we realize that the ring itself doesn't matter as much as the promise we're making. You really mean that? I'm starting to. I closed the box and handed it back to him. But here's the thing, Marcus. You don't get to propose again until we've worked through this, until we've proven to each other that we can handle the hard conversations, until we've built the kind of relationship that can actually sustain a marriage. How long will that take? I don't know. Maybe a month, maybe 6 months, maybe a year. But we'll know when we're ready. We'll both know. He looked at me for a long moment, and I could see him processing all of this, weighing it, deciding if he could live with it. Okay, he finally said. Okay, we do it your way. We start over and do it right. Not my way, I corrected. Our way. Our way, he agreed. We stood there on the balcony, the city glittering around us, the string lights casting their warm glow, the jasmine plants perfuming the air. It should have felt ruined. This moment should have felt broken beyond repair. But somehow, it didn't. Somehow, it felt like we'd stumbled onto something true, something real, something that might actually last, precisely because we'd been forced to look at the hard parts instead of covering them up with pretty lies and fake diamonds. Can I hug you? Marcus asked, and the tentative note in his voice broke my heart and healed it at the same time. Yeah, I said. You can hug me. He pulled me into his arms, and I let myself sink into the familiar comfort of him. The way his chin rested on top of my head. The way his hands splayed across my back. The way he smelled like the cologne I'd bought him for his birthday, and the laundry detergent we both used, and something that was just intrinsically him. I'm sorry, he murmured into my hair. I'm so sorry I almost ruined this. You didn't ruin it, I said against his chest. You just made it real. Real is harder than I thought it would be. Yeah, I agreed. It really is. We stood there like that for a long time, holding each other while the city pulsed around us. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought about the Instagram post I'd been planning. The one where I'd have shown off my engagement ring with some cute caption about how he finally did it, how I said yes, how I couldn't wait to marry my best friend. That post would have gotten hundreds of likes, maybe thousands. People would have commented congratulations, would have called us relationship goals, would have asked about wedding dates and dress styles and venue ideas, and none of them would have known the truth. None of them would have known about the fake ring and the hard conversation and the decision to start over. None of them would have seen the real work that goes into building something lasting. Maybe that was okay. Maybe the real stuff didn't need to be shared with the world. Maybe it just needed to be between us. This private commitment to honesty and growth and showing up for each other, even when it was messy. Eventually, we went back inside, made tea, sat on the couch, and talked for hours about things we should have talked about years ago. Money and expectations and fears and dreams. The conversation wasn't always easy. There were moments where old defensiveness crept back in, where one of us said something that hurt, where we had to stop and recalibrate. But we kept going. We kept choosing to stay in it, to work through it, to be honest, even when honesty was uncomfortable. Around 2 a.m, Marcus fell asleep with his head on my lap, and I sat there running my fingers through his hair, thinking about the future, about the ring we'd choose together, about the proposal that would come eventually when we were both ready, about the marriage we'd build, one honest conversation at a time. It wouldn't be perfect. Nothing real ever is, but it would be ours. And right now, that felt like more than enough. The next morning, I woke up to find Marcus already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed with his phone in his hand and that ring box on the nightstand. "Morning," I said groggily, stretching. He turned to look at me, and there was something different in his expression. Something lighter. "Morning. I've been thinking." "That sounds dangerous," I teased, sitting up. "I'm serious." He set his phone down. "I've been thinking about what you said last night, about doing this together. And I realized there's something I need to do first." "What's that?" "I need to fix the lie. Completely." He picked up the ring box. "This ring, I didn't just get it because I couldn't afford the real thing. I got it because my buddy Marcus works at a jewelry store, and he told me he could get me a really good deal on something that looks exactly like a real diamond." He made air quotes, his face reddening. He made it sound smart, like I was being clever by saving money. But I knew, Maya. I knew it wasn't real. And I bought it anyway because I convinced myself you wouldn't notice, or you wouldn't care, or... He broke off. I convinced myself it didn't matter. But it does matter. It does. And I need you to know the full truth. I didn't just make a financial decision. I made a choice to deceive you. And I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. The raw honesty in his voice, the way he couldn't quite meet my eyes as he said it, told me this was costing him. Really costing him. This was Marcus stripping away the last of his pride, the last of his defenses, and showing me who he really was underneath. "Thank you for telling me," I said quietly. "The full truth, I mean." "There's more." He took a breath. "I've been going through our finances this morning. Really going through them, not just the vague sense I usually have. And you were right. I've been saving, but not as much as I told you I was. I've been spending money on stupid stuff, eating out too much, buying things I don't need, telling myself I deserved it because I work hard." He ran his hand over his face. "But if I'd actually been disciplined about it, if I'd really prioritized the ring like I told you I was, I could have saved enough in another 6 months. Maybe 8. So you could have gotten the real ring by summer?" "Yeah, I could have. I just didn't want to wait. I saw all our friends getting engaged, and I felt like we were falling behind, like I was failing you by not proposing yet. So, instead of just being honest and saying, "Hey, I need a few more months," I took the shortcut. He looked at me then, really looked at me. I chose easy over right. And that's not the kind of husband I want to be. I felt something shift in my chest. This was what I'd needed. Not the perfect proposal, not the expensive ring, but this raw, uncomfortable honesty. This willingness to look at himself clearly and admit where he'd fallen short. "Okay," I said. "So what do we do now?" I returned this. He held up the ring box. "And I start saving for real. No more excuses, no more shortcuts. I cut out the unnecessary spending, I get disciplined, and I do this right. And in 6 months, or 8 months, or however long it actually takes, I propose again. For real this time. With a real ring, and with complete honesty about the process." That sounds like a plan. But here's the thing. He set the box down and took both my hands in his. "I don't want us to be in limbo while I save. I don't want you to feel like we're in some weird pre-engaged state where you're just waiting for me to get my shit together. So I was thinking, what if we make a different kind of promise?" "What kind of promise?" "A promise that we're committed to each other, that we're working toward marriage, that we're on the same page about our future. Just without the ring for now, without the official engagement status. Just us being honest and building something real." I thought about that, about what it would mean to tell people we weren't engaged yet, to sit through more bridal showers for other couples, to field questions from my mother about when Marcus was going to propose. The old me, the me from 2 days ago, would have hated that idea, would have seen it as going backward, as losing ground in some invisible race I didn't even realize I was running. But the me sitting here now, the me who'd been through last night's conversation, saw it differently, saw it as a chance to build something stronger, to make sure the foundation was solid before we started constructing the house. "I like that," I said. "I like the idea of being intentional about this, of taking the time to get it right." "Yeah?" "Yeah." I squeezed his hands. "And honestly, I think we need it. I think we need to prove to ourselves that we can handle the hard stuff before we make it official." "You don't think your mom is going to lose her mind?" I laughed. "Oh, she's definitely going to lose her mind. But that's her problem, not ours. This is about us, not her timeline or anyone else's expectations." He smiled, and it was the first real smile I'd seen from him since before the proposal. "God, I love you. You know that?" "I'm starting to remember," I said, smiling back. "I'm going to do better, Maya. I'm going to be the kind of partner you deserve. The kind who's honest, even when it's hard. The kind who trusts you with the truth. And I'm going to be better too," I said, because this wasn't just about him. This was about both of us learning and growing. "I'm going to be better about communicating what I need, instead of dropping hints and hoping you'll figure it out. I'm going to be better about having the hard money conversations, instead of pretending they don't exist." "So we're really doing this? Starting over?" "We're really doing this." He kissed me then, soft and sweet, and it felt like sealing a promise. Not the promise we'd tried to make last night with a fake ring and pretty words, but a different promise, a more honest one, a promise to show up for each other, to be real with each other, to build something that could last precisely because it was built on truth. That afternoon, we went to the jewelry store together. The one where Marcus had gotten the fake ring. His friend Tony was working, and I saw the moment Tony realized why we were there. The color drained from his face as Marcus set the ring box on the counter. I need to return this, Marcus said, his voice steady. The thing is... Tony glanced at me nervously, then back at Marcus. Returns on clearance items are usually store credit only. Tony. Marcus's voice was firm. You sold me a cubic zirconia and told me it would pass for a real diamond. You knew I was buying it for an engagement ring. You knew I was trying to pass it off as the real thing. I mean, I told you it was a good alternative. You told me it was a really good deal and that my girlfriend would never know the difference. Marcus leaned on the counter. Except she did know the difference, immediately. And now, I need my money back so I can save up for a real ring. Tony looked at me again, and I could see him trying to calculate his options. Look, man, I was just trying to help you out. You said you needed a ring quickly, and you couldn't afford the one she wanted. I said I was trying to figure out options, Marcus corrected. You're the one who suggested I should get a fake and pass it off as real. And that was bad advice. Advice I shouldn't have taken. There was a tense silence. Another employee glanced over from where she was helping a couple look at wedding bands. Finally, Tony sighed. Fine, I'll process the return, but you're not getting the full amount back. There's a restocking fee. How much? 20%. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Fine. Process it. While Tony reluctantly worked on the return, I wandered over to the display cases, looking at the rings. Most of them were far outside what we could afford, but it was interesting to see them in person, to understand what made a good ring versus a mediocre one. See anything you like? Marcus asked, coming up behind me after Tony had handed him a receipt. Nothing we can afford, I said honestly. But that's okay. I'm learning that I don't actually need the fanciest option. I just need something real. We'll find it, he said. Together. We left the store hand in hand, and I felt lighter than I had in months. Maybe years, because we weren't carrying the weight of lies anymore. We weren't trying to maintain some perfect image. We were just us. Messy and honest and figuring it out as we went. Over the next few weeks, something shifted between us. We started having regular money conversations, real ones, where we put all our cards on the table and talked about income and expenses and goals. We created a joint savings account specifically for the ring, and we both contributed to it. Not just Marcus, both of us. Because that's what I'd realized through all of this. It wasn't just his responsibility to buy me a ring. This was something we were building together. Our engagement, our marriage, our future. At first, my contributions were small. $50 here, $100 there. Money I saved by bringing lunch to work instead of eating out, by skipping my bi-weekly manicure, by being more intentional about my spending. Marcus was contributing more, about twice what I was. But we were both invested, both working toward this goal. And something amazing happened. The more we saved together, the less the specific ring mattered. What mattered was the teamwork, the shared goal, the knowledge that we were building this together, brick by brick, dollar by dollar. My mother, predictably, was losing her mind. I don't understand, she said over brunch one Sunday, her third mimosa sitting untouched as she stared at me across the table. He proposed, you said no, and now you're... What? Dating? Still? We didn't say no, I corrected. We pressed pause. We're taking the time to make sure we're ready. Ready? Maya, you've been together for 3 years. How much more ready do you need to be? As much time as we need, Mom. She sighed dramatically. Your father and I were engaged after 6 months. And you fought constantly for the first 5 years of your marriage, I reminded her gently. You've told me that story. How you almost got divorced when I was a baby because you couldn't agree on anything. Well, yes, but you worked through it. Eventually, after years of couples therapy and almost losing everything. I reached across the table and took her hand. Marcus and I are choosing to do that work now. Before we're married, before we have kids, while we still have the space to really figure out how to be partners. My mother was quiet for a moment, and I saw something shift in her expression, something that looked almost like understanding. You really love him, don't you? I really do. And he loves you? He does, enough to do the hard work. Enough to be honest, even when it's uncomfortable. Enough to build something real instead of something pretty. She squeezed my hand. Then I suppose that's all that matters, even if it's not happening on my preferred timeline. Thank you, Mom. But I'm still going to ask about it every time I see you. I would expect nothing less, I said, laughing. 3 months after the failed proposal, Marcus came home from work with a different kind of excitement in his eyes. I have something to show you, he said, pulling out his phone. We'd been looking at rings together for weeks, going to different jewelers, learning about cut and clarity and color, figuring out what actually mattered to us versus what we'd thought should matter. And slowly, we'd narrowed it down to a few options. All of them real, all of them within our budget, all of them beautiful in their own way. Did you find another contender? I asked, settling onto the couch beside him. Sort of. He pulled up a photo. So, you know how my mom still has her engagement ring? The one my dad gave her? Yeah. I was talking to her yesterday about everything that's happened, about how we're doing this differently, and she said something interesting. She said that her ring has been sitting in a safety deposit box for 20 years since my dad died, and she's never been able to bring herself to sell it, but she's also never been able to wear it. He looked at me. She asked if we'd be interested in using the diamond. I stared at the photo. It was a vintage setting, probably from the 70s, with a round diamond that looked substantial. Real. Beautiful. Marcus, that's your mom's ring? I know, and she wants us to have it. Well, she wants us to have the diamond. She said we could have it reset into whatever setting you want. Make it our own. She even offered to pay for the resetting since she knows we've been saving. I didn't know what to say. This felt huge. Not just the monetary value, but the emotional weight. This was his mother's ring, his father's love, his family history. Are you sure she wants to let it go? I asked carefully. I asked her that multiple times. She said keeping it locked away isn't honoring my dad's memory. She said watching it become part of our love story. Watching it symbolize something new and hopeful that would honor him, that would make her happy. I looked at the photo again, then at Marcus. What do you think? I think it's perfect. I think it solves the problem of the cost, yeah. But more than that, I think it connects us to something bigger. It makes our engagement ring part of our family story. My parents' love, our love, all woven together. He paused. But only if you want it. If you'd rather pick out something that's completely ours, that's totally fine. This isn't me trying to take the easy way out again. This is just an option. I thought about it. Really thought about it. About the symbolism of taking something old and making it new. About the generosity of his mother offering us this piece of her history. About the fact that the diamond was real and substantial and meaningful in ways that had nothing to do with money. I love it, I said finally. I love that it's real. I love that it has history. I love that your mom is choosing to share it with us. I love all of it. His face broke into a grin. Yeah? Yeah, let's do it. Let's take the diamond and find the perfect setting and make it ours. My mom is going to be so happy. I can't believe she's trusting us with something so precious. She said. Marcus paused, his voice getting thick with emotion. She said that the best way to honor the love she had with my dad is to help us build the love we have together. That love is meant to be shared and passed down, not locked away in a bank vault. I felt tears prick my eyes. Your mom is incredible. She really is. We sat there for a moment, just holding each other, marveling at this unexpected turn. At the way life sometimes hands you exactly what you need, just not in the way you expected it. 2 weeks later, we went to meet with a jeweler, not Tony's store, but a small family-owned place that specialized in custom work and vintage restorations. Marcus's mother came with us, bringing the ring in its original blue velvet box. When the jeweler opened it, I gasped. The photos hadn't done it justice. The diamond was at least a carat, maybe more, and it caught the light beautifully, sending little rainbows dancing across the table. This is a lovely stone, the jeweler said, examining it with his loupe. Excellent cut, great clarity. Your father had good taste, he said to Marcus. He saved for 2 years to buy it, Marcus's mother said softly. We were so young and so broke, but he was determined to get me a real diamond. Not a big one maybe, but real. I looked at her, this woman who'd raised Marcus alone after his father died, who'd worked those 3 jobs and somehow still found time to teach her son about love and commitment and doing right by people. She was smiling, but her eyes were wet. Are you sure about this? I asked her quietly while Marcus and the jeweler discussed setting options. We don't have to do this if it's too hard to let it go. She took my hand. Maya, I've been carrying this ring around like a weight for 20 years. Couldn't bear to sell it, couldn't bear to wear it, couldn't bear to look at it. But this? She gestured to Marcus, who was excitedly showing the jeweler a sketch he'd drawn of a possible setting. This feels right. This feels like the ring is getting a second life, a second chance at being part of a love story. Thank you, I said, meaning it with everything I had. Thank you for trusting us with it. Thank you for loving my son, for making him want to be better, for not settling for fake when you deserve real. She squeezed my hand. That proposal story he told me, about the fake ring, I wanted to strangle him. I laughed through my tears. I almost did strangle him. Good, he needed the wake-up call. His father would have done the same thing, given him hell for trying to take the easy way out. She smiled, but he would also be proud of how Marcus handled it after. How he owned up to it and chose to do better. That's the real measure of a man. Not whether he makes mistakes, but what he does after. We spent 2 hours with the jeweler, looking at setting options, discussing details, making decisions together. All 3 of us. Marcus's mother had strong opinions about what would honor the original ring, while still making it feel contemporary. I had ideas about what I wanted it to look like on my finger. Marcus mediated between us, making suggestions, listening, adjusting. It felt right. It felt like family. In the end, we chose a setting that was a blend of vintage and modern. It would hold the diamond in a delicate halo of smaller stones, with a thin band that had a subtle twist. The jeweler said it would take about 6 weeks to complete. That gives you time to plan the proposal, his mother said to Marcus as we left the shop. No pressure, Marcus said, but he was grinning. Oh, there's pressure? I teased. After everything we've been through, this proposal needs to be good. Define good. Honest. Real. Us. I think I can manage that, he said, pulling me close. He proposed 4 weeks later. Not on our balcony this time. Not with string lights and city views and carefully orchestrated romance. He proposed on a random Tuesday afternoon while we were grocery shopping. We were in the produce section, debating whether to get regular tomatoes or heirloom ones, when he suddenly got quiet. I looked over at him, and he was just staring at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Soft and certain, and full of something that looked like wonder. "What?" I asked, self-consciously touching my face. "Do I have something in my teeth?" "No." He set down the tomatoes he'd been holding. I was standing here watching you get excited about tomatoes, and I realized this is it. This is the moment. This is the moment for what? For asking you to marry me. My heart stuttered. "Marcus, I know. We said we'd wait until the ring was ready, but I can't wait anymore. Not because I'm impatient, but because I finally understand what you were trying to tell me that night on the balcony." He took both my hands, right there in the middle of the produce section with other shoppers moving around us. "You said it's not about the ring. It's about the promise. And I'm ready to make that promise, Maya. I'm ready to promise that I'll choose honesty over easy. That I'll trust you with the truth, even when it's hard. That I'll build our life together with you, not for you. That I'll show up every day and do the work that real love requires." Tears were streaming down my face. "You're seriously doing this in the grocery store?" "I'm seriously doing this in the grocery store. Because this is us. This is our real life. Not some perfect Instagram moment, but just us, buying groceries and having conversations and building something real together. You don't have the ring. I have something better." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a photo. The sketch the jeweler had made of our ring, with a note written on it in the jeweler's handwriting. "Ready for pickup next Tuesday." "It's done early," Marcus said. "I picked it up this morning. It's at home, in the apartment, sitting on your nightstand waiting for you. But I couldn't wait to get home. I couldn't wait one more second to ask you this." He took a breath. "Maya Rodriguez, will you marry me? For real this time? Will you be my partner in all of this messy, beautiful, honest life?" I was full on crying now, not caring that we had an audience, not caring that this wasn't the elegant proposal I'd once dreamed of, because it was better. It was real. "Yes," I said. "Yes, I'll marry you." He kissed me right there in the produce section, and someone nearby started clapping, and then other shoppers joined in, and it was ridiculous and perfect and exactly right. When we got home, I found the ring where he'd said it would be, on my nightstand, in a simple box with a note that read, "The real thing, for real this time. I love you. M." I opened it with shaking hands. The ring was breathtaking. The jeweler had somehow captured everything we'd discussed. The vintage elements, the modern touch, the way the diamond caught the light and sent it spinning in 1,000 directions. But more than that, it captured our story. The struggle, and the honesty, and the second chance. I slipped it on my finger, and it fit perfectly. Marcus came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "What do you think?" "I think it's the most beautiful ring I've ever seen." "Not too small? Not too plain?" "It's perfect," I said, turning in his arms to face him. "It's real and meaningful and ours, and that makes it perfect." "I'm sorry it took me so long to understand that." "I'm not." I touched his face. "Because if you'd understood it from the beginning, we wouldn't have gone through everything we went through. We wouldn't have learned what we learned. We wouldn't have built what we built." "You're saying the fake ring was actually a good thing?" "I'm saying It taught us both a lesson we needed to learn about honesty and partnership and what actually matters. He kissed my forehead. When did you get so wise? When I fell in love with someone who made me want to be better. We stood there for a long moment, just holding each other, both of us looking at the ring on my finger. The real ring. The one that represented not just his promise to me, but our promise to each other. To show up honestly, to do the hard work, to build something real. The announcement posts were interesting. Most of our friends shared the typical engagement photos. Perfect lighting, perfect outfits, perfect smiles. The kind of photos that looked like they'd been taken by professional photographers. Because they probably had been. We posted a selfie Marcus had taken in the grocery store, both of us laughing, my face streaked with tears, the produce section visible in the background. The caption was simple. He proposed in the grocery store. It was perfect. We're engaged. For real this time. The "for real this time" was an inside joke only we understood, or so I thought. But something surprising happened. People started commenting, asking about that phrase. What did it mean? Was there a story there? And after talking to Marcus about it, we decided to share. Not all the details. That was too personal, 2 hours, but the broad strokes. How the first proposal hadn't worked out. How we'd pressed pause and done the work. How we'd learned to choose honesty over easy. The responses were overwhelming. So many people messaged us privately to say that they related, that they'd felt pressure to have the perfect proposal or the perfect ring, that they'd struggled with hard conversations about money or expectations, that seeing us be real about the messy parts made them feel less alone. One message in particular stuck with me. It was from a woman I'd gone to college with, someone I'd barely talked to in years. "Thank you for sharing your story," she wrote. "My boyfriend proposed last month, and I said yes. But I've been feeling weird about it and couldn't figure out why. Reading your post made me realize he never asked me what kind of ring I wanted. He never talked to me about the financial side. He just made all the decisions and expected me to be grateful. And I'm realizing that's been the pattern in our whole relationship. Him making decisions, me going along with it. Your story made me realize I need to have some hard conversations before we get married, so thank you. Seriously." I showed Marcus the message, and we both sat with it for a moment. "You think they'll be okay?" he asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But at least they'll have a chance to figure it out before it's too late. Before they're married and locked into patterns that don't work. That could have been us. But it wasn't. We figured it out in time." He pulled me close. We figured it out together. The wedding planning was different than I'd imagined too. For years, I'd had a Pinterest board full of elaborate centerpieces and multi-tier cakes and destination venues. The kind of wedding that costs more than most people's cars. The kind that's designed to look good in photos and impress guests. But after everything we'd been through, after all the conversations about money and priorities and what actually mattered, we found ourselves wanting something different. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at a local park. The same park where we'd had our first date. 50 people, simple decorations, a food truck instead of a sit-down dinner. Our friend Sarah officiated. Marcus's mother cried through the entire ceremony. My mother cried too, though she'd initially been horrified by our budget wedding plans, before grudgingly admitting it was actually lovely. But the thing that made it perfect, the thing that made it undeniably, completely us, was the vows. We wrote our own. Of course we did. Marcus went first, his voice steady despite the tears running down his face. "Maya," he said, I'm standing here today because you taught me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. You taught me that the hardest conversations are often the most important ones. You taught me that shortcuts and easy answers don't build lasting things. Only honesty and hard work do that. I promise to always tell you the truth, even when it's scary. I promise to trust you with my struggles instead of trying to protect you from them. I promise to build our life with you, not for you. And I promise that every single day, I'll choose real over easy. I'll choose us. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. Then it was my turn. Marcus, I said, my voice shaking. You taught me something important too. You taught me that love isn't about getting everything right the first time. It's about being willing to start over when you get it wrong. You taught me that the mark of a good partner isn't someone who never makes mistakes. It's someone who owns up to them and does better. I promise to always give you room to be imperfect. I promise to meet you in the hard conversations instead of avoiding them. I promise to see you as my equal, my partner, my person, not someone who needs to impress me or manage me. And I promise that no matter what life throws at us, we'll face it together. With honesty, with courage, with love. When we kissed, I felt Marcus's hand shake as he held my face. Felt the weight of his tears mixing with mine. Felt the solidity of my wedding band sliding into place next to my engagement ring. Both of them real. Both of them earned. At the reception, Marcus's mother pulled me aside. I need to tell you something, she said, taking my hands. When Marcus told me about the fake ring, about how you'd caught him, I was so angry at him, so disappointed. But you know what I was even more impressed by? What? You. The fact that you didn't just walk away. The fact that you saw the mistake and said, okay, let's fix this together. That's the kind of partner my son needs. That's the kind of partner everyone needs. She touched my face gently. I'm so grateful he found you, and I'm so grateful you found him. Thank you for trusting us with your ring, I said, glancing down at my hand. It means everything. It's where it belongs, she said simply. Being part of a love story, connecting the past to the future. That's what love does. It reaches backward and forward all at once, connecting us all together. That was 5 years ago. We're sitting on our balcony now, the same balcony where Marcus first proposed with the fake ring, where we had the conversation that changed everything. But it's not the same apartment. We saved up and bought a house 2 years ago, and this balcony is bigger, overlooks a garden instead of the city, is filled with more plants than I ever managed to keep alive in our old place. Our daughter is sleeping inside. She's 6 months old, and she has Marcus's eyes and my stubborn streak. We named her Elena, after Marcus's mother, who cried for an hour when we told her. I'm wearing my rings, both of them tarnished now with daily wear, scratched from life, but still beautiful. Still real. Still holding the story of how we almost got it wrong and then chose to get it right. Do you ever think about that night? Marcus asks, reaching over to take my hand. The failed proposal? Sometimes, I admit. Do you? All the time. He runs his thumb over my rings. I think about how close I came to ruining everything, how I almost built our marriage on a lie. But you didn't. Only because you called me out. Only because you were brave enough to say, this isn't right. And you were brave enough to hear it. We sit in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the evening sounds. A dog barking somewhere. Kids playing in the street. The rustle of leaves in the garden below. You know what the crazy thing is? I say eventually. I'm grateful it happened. The fake ring, the hard conversation, all of it. Because it taught us how to fight, how to be honest, how to work through the hard stuff, and we've needed those skills. God, we've needed them. He laughs. That's an understatement. Remember the fight about whose turn it was to do the dishes when I'd been up all night with Elena? Or the fight about whether to accept the job offer that would require you to travel more? Or the fight about where to spend Christmas? So many fights, I say, smiling. But we work through them. We do. Because you taught me how that first night. You taught me that the fight isn't the end. It's just part of the process. Marcus is quiet for a moment. You think we should tell Elena this story someday? About the fake ring? Absolutely. When she's older, when she's thinking about getting married. I want her to know that real love isn't perfect Instagram moments and flawless proposals. Real love is messy and hard and requires you to show up honestly even when it's uncomfortable. She's lucky to have you as a mom. She's lucky to have both of us. Inside, Elena starts crying, that distinctive, I'm awake and I want attention cry that we've learned to recognize. Marcus stands, stretches, offers me his hand. Duty calls. Duty calls. I agree, letting him pull me to my feet. As we head inside together, I catch sight of my reflection in the glass door. I look tired, because I am tired, because parenting a 6-month-old is exhausting. But I also look happy. Really, truly happy. Not the performative happiness of social media, but the deep, solid happiness that comes from building something real with someone you trust completely. The fake ring taught me what I didn't want, but everything that came after taught me what I did want, what I needed, what was worth fighting for, real, honest, imperfect, true, the kind of love that's strong enough to hold the weight of a lifetime. Years from now, when Elena is grown and maybe thinking about marriage herself, I'll tell her this story. I'll tell her about the fake ring and the hard conversation and the decision to start over. I'll tell her about her father's courage in admitting he was wrong and about my courage in refusing to accept less than we deserved. But more than that, I'll tell her about what came after. About the daily choice to show up honestly. About the hard conversations that got easier with practice. About learning to see mistakes not as endings, but as opportunities to grow. About building a life together brick by brick, conversation by conversation, choice by choice. I'll tell her that the proposal isn't the story. The wedding isn't the story. The ring isn't the story. The story is what you build together, day after day, year after year. The story is how you handle the hard moments, not just the happy ones. The story is choosing each other again and again, even when it would be easier not to. That's the real thing. That's what lasts. And it's worth so much more than any diamond.